For the past 3 years, the Canon R6 has been my go-to camera for photos and for making videos like this on YouTube. When the Mark II was announced, I didn't really have a need to upgrade, and to be honest, it felt more like a refresh than a new camera release. Then along came this guy, the Canon R8, which shares the same 24.2 megapixel full frame sensor from the R6 Mark II. And conveniently, it's priced almost exactly the same as a second-hand R6 Mark I, so which one is the better buy? Starting off with the sensor, the R6 is utilizing an older 20.1 megapixel sensor originally developed for the EOS R1DX. A very capable sensor, but it is starting to show its age. The R8, on the other hand, is sporting a newer 24.2 megapixel sensor, the same one found in the R6 Mark II. In practice, images from both cameras look very similar. I've tried to use the same RF 15 to 35mm lens for as many of these shots as possible to make it a fair test. Dynamic range-wise, the R8 has the slightest advantage, but this difference only really is noticeable if we look at technical tests. In Lightroom, the images look pretty much identical. Sharpness, latitude, noise. The R8 on paper definitely has the advantage, but in practice, man, do they look similar. Zooming in to 100% on some of these images, and you do start to notice the 4 extra megapixels of the R8, but again, if you showed me these two images side by side, I would struggle to tell you which one is which. With video, it's sort of the same story. Both cameras can shoot C-Log3, both in 10-bit, both have very close to the same dynamic range. Looking at some of these shots side by side, you almost need to label them to tell them apart. I knew going in, being cameras with very similar sensors, it might be close, but the R8 is absolutely holding its own against a camera that cost 2 times as much just a couple of years ago. Now, you can interpret these results however you want. I think a good way to look at it is we have 2 very capable camera bodies. Both are able to shoot amazing looking footage, and both can be picked up for under $1,500. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, if they're the same price, have the same image quality, why wouldn't I just go for the newer R8? Well, there are some major differences between the two. First off is IBIS. Whether it was to save money, save weight, or save battery life, Canon has chosen not to put IBIS in the R8, meaning you have to rely solely on lens stabilization. On the R8, you do get the option to use digital IS in conjunction with lens IS, but this is still a far cry from a stabilized sensor. Depending on your work, this may matter, it may not. If you shoot a lot of lockdown static shots, having a stabilized sensor doesn't make any difference to the image quality, but if you do a lot of run and gun work like I do, having a good IBIS system is crucial. Another notable difference between the two is battery life. The R6 uses the more common Canon LPE6N batteries, while the R8 uses the smaller LPE17 batteries. What this means in day-to-day use is simply you're going to need to carry more of these around with you and manage their battery usage when you're out. I've grown used to the frankly great battery life of the R6, and when using an R8 for a full day shoot, I had to be much more careful about when the camera was on and how much I was shooting. Lastly, in the difference department, we have the buttons and dials, the ergonomics of both of these cameras. The R6 has a much more standard button layout. It has a joystick to move around the AF point, and it has 3 separate dials for shutter, aperture, and ISO. With the R8, we're missing a lot of these same buttons and dials found on the R6, which just means you're going to be diving into the menus more to change settings that on the R6 you can change with physical buttons. With that being said, there is one thing that the R8 does that is a massive plus, and that is a dedicated photo and video switch on top of the camera that saves your settings. I think that this should be on pretty much every hybrid mirrorless camera going forward because it makes switching between photo mode and video mode so fast and simple. This is the one dial that I really hope Canon keeps on all of their cameras going forward. And so in the end, it's basically impossible to choose a winner here. I think both the R6 and R8 are fantastic cameras with more than enough photo and video features to be used in a professional environment. From the image quality to the video quality to the ergonomics, the reliability, both of these cameras are more than capable of producing an amazing image. It really does come down to the person behind the camera. As always, if you have any questions about either of these cameras, leave those in a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another one.